Welcome. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. This is your first edition for 2025. And this is the show that you have been very expectant of. A number of people. Ansaki says this panel is wonderful, Medasi. Hanan Confidence Abdul says, Newsfile, an empowering 10. Thank you for the assemblage of these beautiful and powerful female voices. Today's show is a celebration of brilliance, balance, and bold perspectives. Christabel Dazi of the World Bank says, excellent way to start the new year. Solid panelists. We can do it if we want to. Representation matters. Messi Ejabeng of the Alliance for Women in the Media says that this is lit. Such skill, talents, brains, and wit. And Yaira Akosia Adibo, Veronica, says a bold, diligent, she says she loves this. And she is a bold, diligent lawyer. My University of Ghana English course mate and senior at the bar. She joins thought leaders like Noam Fallon and many who are super excited about today's edition. I'm Samson Ladia Yanini. Once again, welcome. And my guests are from my extreme lefts. Dr. Esther Ofeya-Boaje is chair of the Integrated Social Development Center, ISODEC. Many of you would have associated her with those who sort of pay the purse for a lot of civil society work to go on in Ghana. By her is the Honorable Fatima Abubakar, who is Minister for Information and spokesperson for the transition team that's on the government side. And right by me is Joyce Bawa Mukhtari. She's a lawyer, she's special aide and spokesperson for the John Mahama 2024. Joining us via Zoom, Professor Akosia Adumako Ampofo, Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana, and Dr. Angela Dramina-Boaje, Executive Director, the ARC Foundation, and Chairperson of the Civic Initiative. They played a very instrumental role in getting your presidential candidates to pledge to peace in the elections. Ladies, good morning, and thank you so much for making time to join us on Newsfile.
Good morning, Samson.
Right. So let's perhaps begin briefly from Kantamanto. It's been such a bad news, as the president said when he gave his speech. He said, I am deeply saddened by the devastating fire at Kantamanto Market, which took place yesterday and has left many traders and their livelihoods in ruins. Government stands with you and will work with relevant agencies to ascertain the causes of the fire and to provide the needed support. That is very important. As we understand, more than 7,000 shops have been destroyed and over 30,000 traders have been affected. This appears to be repeating too often. December 15, 2020, it happened. November 29, 2022, it happened. September 17, 2023, there was fire there. And now January 2, 2025. So let me begin with Dr. Ofeya-Boaje. What do you say about what is happening and what can be done about this to avoid this repeat?
Thank you very much, Samson, for having me. Good morning to your august listeners and a happy new year. The matter of the Kantamanto market is indeed devastating, to use the president's words. But the sad thing is that, like you said, it's a phenomenon that's repeating itself, which means that there's something we are not doing right. Fires in markets. It's as if we rush in and then it blows over. We don't take sustained initiatives to prevent, manage, and rehabilitate those to whom it happens. Indeed, we should be able to prevent these things from happening, because these markets are places where a lot of people, particularly women, run their lives from.
That's right.
They have made heavy investments. They have put in their life savings. That's where they start their day, spend the most of their day, and that kind of thing. What are the factors that bring about these fires? Is it about preventive education? Is it about readiness? Is it about letting people be aware of the dangers that they are in, the things that bring about fires, and what can happen? Is it about the infrastructure, the electrical setup of our markets, and so on? The question, okay, immediately, I mean, we are thinking about immediate reliefs, because you can't start a new year with all of your investments bent up. So what is our emergency response, our shock response? Not on little reliefs, but on a large scale that will stabilize a person and, you know, give them prospects for going forward in terms of giving them the resources that they need to set up. Beyond that, at the personal level, we're also thinking about what we are doing around insurance, people's attitudes and understanding of insurance for such events. Having said that, the question I have in my mind, beyond a responsive shock response strategy that will kick in immediately, is what our local authorities are doing, because markets are the business of local authorities, and also the availability of fire service support within our various localities and quickly assigned to the markets or rushing into the markets to do that. The issue of capacity, properly capacitating our fire services and also giving them the resources that they need to be able to respond. So there are a lot of questions in my mind about how we can do this and do this differently, and how not to go to sleep after this one.
Okay.
You know, because it's like we worry, we sympathize, and then after that, nothing earth-shaking, preventive happens. We need a sustained response. Again, coordination between the various entities that have responsibility for managing this, the fire service, NADMO, the local authorities, and all of these kinds of things. How do we strengthen coordination so that the response is immediate, effective, timely, and reassuring for Ghanaians?
Thank you. Immediate, effective, timely, and reassuring. And that's how there ought to be the shock response to this. And beyond now, we must not lift our foot from the ball on this issue. Now, Fatima, I'm sure the president says this is devastating. I'm sure, like him, you would have seen some of the affected women and men in the marketplace. It's heart-wrenching. You hear them, some of them, they can't even cry. They are trying to cry.
First of all, Samson, let me say Happy New Year to you, to Dr. Faye Abuaje and my sister Joyce, and also to your cherished viewers and listeners as well. In fact, I was so sad by this incident because during my days at the University of Ghana, I was a frequent patron of Kantamanto every Saturday morning. And when we talk about the numbers, and you are not someone who has been there, sometimes it sounds abstract. But the figures that you put out, I believe, are correct, of 30,000 traders. We are talking about 30,000 families, breadwinners, single parents, people who have nothing else apart from whatever they had at Kantamanto that they cannot salvage. And even some patrons of the market who go to buy and go and resell at other places across the country. it should tell you that the impact of what has happened at Kantamanto is unimaginable. And for most people who sell there, that is all they have. After what they've lost from here, they have nowhere else to go. So it is my prayer that there will be an urgent intervention to see how best we can restore livelihood at the place. But Dr. Fire raised a very important issue about how we can forestall some of these market fires. You remember the Millennium Challenge Compact 2, right. The MIDA Compact 2. It included some programs to rewire some of the markets across the country. I believe it's a step that we can further expand, even without international support, to make sure some of these incidents, if they are not arson, because of the nature of incident and the pain, all sorts of allegations have been thrown out there. But for an official, I am in no position to go with speculations until such a time that the fire service we have today, which has a forensic laboratory, is able to come out with some probable
The public relations officer, Alex Kinneti, says that, quote, we suspect electrical faults, but there are also indications that this could have been a deliberate act. An investigation is ongoing to establish the facts. Absolutely.
So it's my prayer that when the findings are out, we will see how best a successive government or the incoming government will see how to restore livelihoods there and make sure such an incident does not occur.
Right. Before we hear from Joyce, let's listen to some of the affected traders.
The effect, the impact, the ripple impact of this whole thing, the situation is dire on them. So they are pleading with governments to come to their aid. Let's
every day demand day. Kantamanto Fire to me. And my sister me of Munina day. But yes, we. But it's kakre me so I can't atre abamum penny for any teacher or more Ghana Hano. Say fine. And yes, in a moment the etiti, and in your num is sumase, and in Yabia sono ye GD say and yes sanity. But I say na pamo, I have pamo because your baby are more ye dimoja, and I ain't Ghana for no so no your baby a toya the any baby a dear. Because more you are Ghana have a breed, but Oka was any bad or send you gumo. But it can't amount to any patchy woman in any packet. So what I see because population or for long short to see and I may go. I meet my catcher say about 50% in a biomoku, 85 million any kunu. Kantamanto Fire to move to Mukranko to any threat. But every amount you say, Biamubesia more time and Nipa more emwa because for Sunia money and Tom or Momu. Because I had dear job table so I had no crahende gun and I do rakanta ha. What's me the ball bra? What I say, what's me the ball bra? So sunny at no. But I passed to a bit messy. But you ain't think I said fine or benting and I send the pass messy and idea. But we are so be animal and I'm penny for.
Say dear. Ye need the kotomo jemu papa. Esansa atama atsoye no. Ye ni ejina ha nyina matan. Ye nyina ejina ha nyina matan obi ani dwetire. Ekurafo pa ewo mu na afia so. Na hwese nkola suku abra so. Na maye oye ne sei. Se ye hu se Ghana ha ye ni eja. Esansa obi asi ha e bebusa ye se die mpo na atomo. Abatso ana aduru asabre nko mu nyina wa ha opanyimu bie ni ho aba ha bebu science me nua manom da ba ne sempo ye hu se ye dampan ne ye de ni asem bia ebeka onipa biala wotimi hwe nyankopon anim e de sa oye ne kese wi aba boyense no ye ni bie ye nkuta bie ye bransa ne nsaka ye na hom de sa de we ye die abra omo wo bie sa abra omo tete om dan ni table ho enum ti every salad akase na yen ye mo bosei and o my yen
2 years. Welcome to God been 12 years ago. The NDC helped us, but we help ourselves too, and that's why we are doing that. We know the government, the MPP or the NDC or whatever will be in power will help us. But we want to help because the saying is helping help those who help themselves. So we are helping ourselves, and we don't expect. We know the economy cannot cater for everything. The last time it happened, the NDC gave everybody 300 Ghana cedis a gift, and there was a master give us a loan, and we know it will. We are looking for it. We are not saying if they come up to say, okay, we will help you build the share, or even the cost of the share we are going to take up. We say we are not going to reject it, but we simply want to help ourselves.
All right, so one of the chairmen of the associations, various associations at the Kantamanto market there, speaking about how 12 years ago this happened and they got support from government, and the woman before her was complaining that's the day after the fire that they had not been visited by any official of state, and that what had happened, there were widows, there were orphans and many others who make their livelihood, who eke out a life from that place. And so what has happened to them is devastating. And before that, you had a gentleman who also suggested they have some suspicions that there's an intention to put up a mall at the place. And he insists that that should not happen and their livelihoods be taken away from them. Over 7,000 shops destroyed and over 30,000 people affected. Joyce.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies, and good morning, Samson. Happy New Year to everybody, and we thank God for making it possible for us all to come in here on such a positive note. I want to say a very big thank you to each and every member of the National Democratic Congress, to the President-elect, and to all our leaders who've led us to battle and to such a successful end of that campaign. So thank you, everybody, and may God actually help us to govern in ways that will be pleasing to the eyes and minds of the good people of Ghana who have made this win possible. You know, Samson, I watched these scenes a few days ago. It actually really broke my heart. And you know, like Fatima said, for all of us young children whose mothers literally spent many days and hours traversing these markets, it brings it actually home to you in ways that you cannot even imagine. It is heart-wrenching, really, really sad to watch the spectacle. And you see, it also speaks to how our very underprivileged in our society are left, you know, to wallow in such squalor, to live in this market for all these years, you know. And remember that that particular catchment area, that enclave, is actually a demarcated railway section of our country, you know. Right. And for years, this place has been heavily populated, not even just by displaced persons, if you know what I mean. These are regular, ordinary members of our society who eke out a living, literally day in, day out. It is a market that literally never sleeps. And believe you me, those stalls are also homes to these people. And you listen to a gentleman who spoke about all the children who were born, bred, and raised in this environment. You know, these are members of our society that it appears that through all the pomp and pageantry, through all the partisanship and all the political conversations, we have literally forgotten that we ought to focus on uplifting them. You know, there's been this plan for years to enhance and modernize our markets. It's been going on for a while, but I think it is a process that is actually not as quick as it should be. You know what I mean? I think that this actually calls for a very, 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 very good debate. And I hope that Parliament will take this very seriously. Everybody has spoken about the devastation, spoken about how tragic this is, about the livelihoods that are lost, about, of course, the fact that, look, clearly there can be no insurance of any of these things. You and I know the processes that lead up to being able to insure your wares. It must actually be a proper structure. It must be in a legitimately designated marketplace. It must also be a lawfully designated area for such business to thrive. So you and I know that no insurance will even go there and insure any of these businesses. I believe a lot of monies have been lost because most of these people actually spoke about how they no longer go to the banks because they don't trust the banking system anymore. You heard the gentleman speak about how bad the economy is and the fact that this is all their lives.
Some had actually left their monies in their shops and they were bent.
I saw notes that were totally bent out. You can't tell what the quantum really is. We can't even begin to actually calculate what has been lost in this inferno. My heart goes out to the many young children who have now been left with no shelter, Imagine what facilities you need even to rehouse and resettle these numbers that we've seen. I pray that our leaders will take this as a wake-up call, that immediately from here, something ought to be done beyond paying lip service to what is required. You know, Samson, it is why when my sister mentioned the Millennium Compact, I thought to myself, yes, it brings back memories about the PDS issue and how those monies were literally siphoned away by persons who should know better. It is for these reasons that Ghanaians went to the polls to elect a new leadership. And I pray that we don't let people down. Expectations are very high. I told my boss a few days ago that this must actually be the model for his conversations around enhancing markets in Ghana. If it means going back to the drawing boards, if it means redemarcating the area, to be certain that these are portions of this land that we intend to designate at sustainable markets, then certainly so be it, so that we can start to provide something that will augment, at least soften the hardships on these people.
Talking about the compact, we lost it, and President-elect has been saying that he's making attempts to see if we can get it back to assist. So you're hopeful?
Yes, very hopeful. You know, fortunately, I was actually in the meetings with the Undersecretary of State in the United States of America, where these conversations took place. They've actually made some requests. They want some guidelines to be taken. They want to look at the power sector and how we can at least, you know, reposition. Don't forget that all these power distribution companies now are literally very weak. You know the challenges with the Electricity Corporation of Ghana. You know the challenges with the power supply system and all of that. Even the debt owed to the independent power producers.
We'll come to speak about the energy sector.
Things, absolutely. So, yes, there's a very positive outlook. And, you know, once there's a new government in place, new conversations are taking place.
All right.
And you heard the U.S. ambassador in Ghana to speak very hopefully about the fact that when you judge by the challenges we have with power distribution, look at the wiring in that place.
Right.
So that, you know, beyond us and beyond the suspicions, chances are this could actually just be something that triggered it. And so it happened in the Ashanti region, if you remember, and it's happened across the country over the years. My heart goes out to all of these people. And I
Quick question to you, and same will go to Fatima, because the president says that they would look at providing the needed support. We would like you to explain what needed support is, Fatima. And also, Joyce, the president-elect has indicated that there's a team that is supposed to, you know, check what is going on. So he will do what with that? Yes, so beginning with you, Joyce. Yeah.
Yes, certainly. Look, I know that Mr. Mahama has always been very concerned about our market structures across the country. I know that every effort was made to improve these markets and to enhance them. I know that what has happened here happened in Makola not too long ago. We saw similar scenes, except I think the devastation was not really as widespread as this one is. I mean, look at this is a complete slum. It just cries for the fact this is not sustainable on any level, that you cannot continue to allow people to exist in this very, you know, harrowing manner in these circumstances. I have personally spoken to Mr. Mahama, and I know that this is a matter very close to his heart. Don't forget that Mrs. Mahama herself actually had shops in these markets, some of them, Makola and Malata, for example, and has remained very closely associated with these environments. He has assured us of one thing, that the market enhancement projects will start immediately. And the team is supposed to actually go on a reconnaissance, actually, to visit these environments and find out just what we can do, because they're also heavily populated.
That's right.
Building within persons who are already in existence is not always easy. But these days, we have also experts who know how to even develop these very busy environments, even while the people still go about their normal business. I know the team will come out with a very good report. I know that Kantamanto will probably kickstart his journey towards leading the country into at least some momentary hopefulness. And I believe that people are expectant and looking forward. I mean, 12 years ago, they were given 300 Ghana cedis. I mean, 12 years later, 300 Ghana cedis, it sounds like a pittance.
But that was money at the time.
At the time, exactly. So I think that beyond giving them some stipends and maybe some shelter, I believe that the long-term thing really is to reconstruct.
And the leader we heard has a posture that is very commendable.
I like that too, yes.
He kept repeating
Yes,
that they want to help themselves.
Yes.
Right. So Fatima, yes.
Okay. First of all, I would like to clear two key issues. One has to do with the assertion that no government official has been there. I am reliably informed that the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Honorable Nikwate Titus Glover, has been there. The Accra Mayor, Madam Elizabeth Saki, has also been there.
I suppose the time she was speaking, the woman, affected woman was speaking, they had not been there.
Okay.
Right.
The other issue also has to do with the rewiring of some selected markets. It has nothing to do with PDS. So I don't even know how the conversation veered in that direction.
The reference was that the compact
I was saying that
was helping that.
The Compact 2 had several components.
Okay.
One which has to do with the reorganization of our power distribution system, that is PDS.
That's the one we have lost.
Yes, but there were other components which have to do with rebifurcation, rewiring of some selected markets, building of some of the bulk supply points that went through. So those are relevant to this conversation, and I didn't know we would be talking about power distribution challenges.
So those continue to exist?
Yes.
Those are not affected?
Of some selected markets in Accra and Tamale actually happened, and I believe if you look at the breakdown of the compact, that will show.
All right.
But in terms of supports that the market, I'm talking about in terms of quantum or nature of support that these markets may require. One has to do with funding. Capital is gone. People have lost everything. So when they talk about support, I know already some of them have gone ahead to buy wood and roofing sheets to build their sheds back, just as the man.
So when the president said needed support to them, it will include money?
I think substantially they will be talking about capital. But beyond capital or recapitalization.
I'm not talking about they, I'm talking about the president. He says they will be giving the needed support.
Of course, previously. In fact, we've had a very good relationship with traders in this country. Even beyond market fires, go and look at the CABAS, the components that the Ghana Enterprises Agency and other selected agencies under the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Trade Industry did in times of difficulty to support traders recapitalize. But also when there are speculations about wiring, about fire outbreaks due to gas, among others, I think it is also important that we give the necessary public education on how to manage some of these incidents. I believe first aid is important. If the fire starts somewhere and someone has access to fire extinguishers or other products that will be able to stop the initial fires, I don't think it will get to this extent. And also to talk about the preparedness of the Ghana Fire Service. This government, President Akufo-Addo-led government, has done so much when it comes to the Ghana Fire Service. And one has to do with capacity. By January 2017, the capacity of the fire service in terms of personnel was just 7,000. 7,000 men across the country. Now we have recruited 8,000, additional 8,000. And on record, if you check the capacity of the Ghana National Fire Service, they have 15,000 personnel.
So there should be one fire
relevant.
station at this market?
I believe so. We have established 24 fire posts since 2017. But when some of these incidents happen and you know some flashpoints, it is very important that some of these facilities are extended to them. So I just wanted to clear the impression as if there is no recognition of the threats of fires and no steps taken. But I am speaking to the facts as they exist at the Ghana National Fire.
Yeah, but the question someone will ask is, if you have done this expansion, then we shouldn't see the fires destroy the markets the way they do. Like the president said, everything has been brought to ruins at this place.
Samson, fires are generally classified as being part of disasters. In fact, the almighty United States of America, they have been a lot of challenges, especially when it comes to fires. It doesn't mean there are no infrastructure in place. There can be continuous effort to improve what exists. But I'm saying sometimes disasters happen unannounced. So if there is education on early management, if there is funding to recapitalize and see how the infrastructure there can be improved to make it more accessible. Because there are times that fire personnel will go to a location where there are fire tenders and all the resources they may have. But access may be such a challenge that by the time they reach the flash points, it is too late and not much can be salvaged.
Thank you very much.
Very quickly, and I'm sure maybe my sister Fatima probably hasn't followed this particular incident. To be honest, it took forever even to get a fire tender to the scene. Even the very first one appeared, they didn't have any water. Don't forget that this is a whole logistical process, and we don't want to discuss value chains here. That's a whole technological conversation. And the crowds in that place, the sheer numbers, even if you had 10 fire tenders, access will be a challenge. That's a different conversation. But I believe that on the first call, even when the fire tenders got there, you know what happened. And I'm sure you have footage of what happened. You know, look, let's not try to defend the indefensible. I think that we've moved on from there. And Ghanaians have told this government that you have not been too sensitive to our plight. I don't want us to reduce the conversation to who did what and who didn't do what. President Akufo-Addo himself yesterday admitted that he was helpless. So let's just leave it there and maybe commiserate with the people and hope that the new administration will take market improvements very seriously. That will also include that logistical incapabilities of the fire tenders getting access. Remember that in these places, normally there are water things in the underground. And so when the fire tenders get there, they get the water right from there. I studied these things, so I know that these are not circumstances that even allow for access, one. Two, we don't even have the infrastructure, the requisite way in which a proper fire tender can approach such a crowded environment and even work. So beyond education and advocacy, the future is that there must be quick reforms.
Right.
Some I even propose that we even now need regulations to regulate some of these markets. Note that some of the modern markets in Makola and other places have very clear guidelines, size, shape, where you can build, where you can't build. They even have drainage systems, they have restroom facilities, and access is critical.
Right.
There be clearly delineated areas where cars can move in when there's an emergency, ambulances.
Like Dr. Feabaji said, this is the responsibility of the local assemblies.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you very much. Now, let me go to Dr. Angela Dwamnabwaji. Thank you for joining us. But before that, let's hear what the president said again. I'm getting information that the major problem, apart from the recruitment being good, 8,000 or so extra, you have problems with the tenders, and that a good number of them are broken down. Again, issues of maintenance. But let's hear the president.
I want to put on record that I'm deeply saddened by the devastating fire at Kantamanto Market, which took place yesterday, and has left many traders and their livelihoods in ruins. My thoughts and prayers are with those affected, and I extend heartfelt sympathies to the hard-working traders who have lost their goods and investments. Government stands with you and will work with relevant agencies to ascertain the causes of the fire and to provide the needed support. As a nation, let us unite in compassion and solidarity to help those who have suffered losses. Together, we can extend a helping hand to our fellow Ghanaians in need during this challenging time.
So beyond the issues of compassion and feeling as he feels, because you definitely can't avoid feeling the way he feels about what has happened to these men and women, really. Doc, how do you expect that the help, in what form should it come? Let's hear you after we hear your words of sympathy to them.
Well, thank you very much, Samson, and good morning to all my sisters in the studio and Prof outside, and Happy New Year to Ghana. We've come far. I think for me, all the words of sympathy and compassion and so on have been uttered, and rightly so. It's heart-wrenching, it's heartbreaking to see particularly women and many men also lose their livelihoods in this way. But the sad thing for me is the repetition. Okay, it means as a country we are not learning in some aspects, and we are not applying even the things that we're supposed to have learned from these incidents to our lives. And that's something that needs to be really addressed going forward. Now, one of the things that intrigues me is, why do we appear to have fires, increasing fires around the holiday season and the new year? Okay, so sometimes it really, I just don't get it. We do understand the basics, that people get excited, people will leave their electric gadgets on, maybe gas fires and so on and so forth. So that's a whole part of it. But why is it that, because it has happened over and over, we have not been able to learn the lessons and to be able to integrate these lessons into how we manage our markets and other facilities? Okay. The other thing is the fact that even when the fire service gets into it and they give us the information that they're going to come back with whatever they find, we never appear to get that information back. Okay, so I'm wondering, are there issues about investigative capacities for the fire service, so we get some kind of data, information that helps us to integrate these things into our planning going forward? I think we need to look at that, because people are suspecting arson. It may be out of electric fires, whatever it is. But we do need to strengthen investigative capacities and feedback that informs policy and planning. Otherwise, I can bet you next year, January, another big fire is going to happen in some market or the other. We've talked about modernization of markets and so on. I know government after government have had these in their manifestos and so on and so forth. I think we need to start taking some of these things seriously, because at a certain point, we'll be looking at whether we need to be a manifesto-driven country or a national development plan-driven country. Okay, so I'm not so much interested in what the manifestos say about market modernization, but what the plan for this country would be going forward, irrespective of who is in power.
Talking about modernization or modernizing markets, they have some suspicions that perhaps, and it's so wild, that this place was touched for the purposes of setting up a mall. How does a government navigate that situation and see a day after they have taken over their shirts and beginning to do their own reconstruction somewhat?
Yes, I mean, Ghana, there are many conspiracy theories and many suspicions, and sometimes these suspicions are even fueled by our severe partisanship. Okay, so I don't really know what to say to a government or an incoming government about how do you navigate these kinds of questions that people have on their minds, apart from providing them with information. Okay, providing them with the kind of education that helps them to keep safe and information as to how we go forward, because this has already happened, and ensuring that you are not going to do things that will bring the suspicions to come to pass. Okay, because we are looking at a population, a whole part of our population that have been in the informal sector and have contributed so much to our economies and our families. Ghana didn't crash because a lot of the money from these places were not in the formal system. That is something we need to also realize, okay? So that it is important for us not to make their suspicions come to pass, that some rich people are trying to take over. That's why this is happening. But on support, this is where the issue of quick thinking and coordination comes in. Most of my life, I've been a crisis responder. So when I see this, my crisis response thinking comes into, immediately. And this must be done by coordinating what needs to be done. Coordination is something that Ghana needs to grasp, because it goes to the very heart of our policy planning, implementation, and even feedback and evaluation. What do we do immediately? By now, all the relevant agencies, state, local government, should be put into a kind of coordinated framework to provide the sources, the sources of grants, the sources of long-term financing, the sources of help. People would have mental health issues coming from this. Where are we going to draw from the health sector? I heard
one of the traders, a man who said he's been doing this for all his life there, and he has a wife and 5 daughters. That's what he said.
Right.
And he actually he said he had about 30,000 also in the shop, and it's bent. So he didn't know where he was going from that place.
Exactly. But you see, the resilience of a people is shown when you have leadership in coordination, because right here are the answers. Already they're thinking we have enough resources internally to respond to our own crisis. We want to help ourselves, but we need help. So it means that we need to coordinate the help. We need to coordinate the help for the counseling, the crisis part. We need to coordinate the financial support part for the long term. If there are issues around insurance, for example, and if there are issues around immediate support. And this has to come by the leadership that we get in terms of coordinating. I know we're in a tricky place, with the transition team and the, government come, government go place. But still, there's still a government in power. And I would think that it would even be a good opportunity to invite even other people from the other side to help in this work almost immediately.
Right.
We can do it.
Thank you. So, Professor Akosi Admakwanpo for joining us. Thank you so very much, Prof. And Angie and your friends in the studio, everybody is talking about immediate support. I think it's Dr. Fire Abuaji who uses the expression, is a shock response. But what do you think can happen in the long term, particularly at a place where it does appear that the government ought not have allowed the market to have, sprout up at this place? So if you are going to go forward, how do you do that? Perhaps a relocation, and they will not be interested in that also.
Thompson, good morning. A productive new year. I can't say happy, given the news that we are talking about at the moment, the catastrophe really that has happened in the market. But a productive new year to you, to my sisters in the studio, my sister Angela online, and as Ghanaians will say to your cherished listeners and viewers. This question that you have asked, Samson, I think it really, we can distill it down to one of the major challenges we have in this nation, which is planning and applying our regulations. Because we are a country that has wonderful laws, we have regulations, we have policies, and yet we don't apply them. And so this level of lawlessness, right? I'm sure all of us, from the way people drive, from the sense of entitlement that big men and women have on the streets, taking over people's property, students in the exam room, pastors and bishops who exploit in their congregations. We can go on and on and on. And so unless we deal with the root issues of who we are as a people, we're not going to fix this Kantamanto or other issues. And I've been around for a long time. I do not wish to be a cynic, but honestly, if all of us from our leadership down do not decide that we are going to, the NDC has been using the term reset. And I was asking myself, both as a government and as Ghanaians, if we want to reset, because I'm sure we all want a change, what are we resetting to? what are the factory settings that we really, really want? Do we want them? And, you know, it's difficult to think of long-term solutions unless all of us decide we're going to do things differently. We've got government, they have the opportunity to take the difficult decisions. Yes, as sisters have said in the studio, there has to be a coordinated effort, there has to be an immediate response. We have to show our humanity. We do that very well as Ghanaians. Angela was talking about crisis responses. We do that well, and then we go back to our old way. But we need an immediate crisis response now, all hands on deck. How can we help people? There will be a committee of inquiry, I'm sure. How did it happen? Was it arson? Was it not? Is it insurance? Is the wiring bad? You know, what is it? And then the incoming government has the opportunity to put people in office who will actually do their jobs without fear or favor, who, if people need to be sacked, will sack them, who will evaluate them on their competencies, and whoever the buck stops with the markets is going to be charged with having terms of reference and actual things to do that will make sure that this doesn't happen again. You're going to start with the little things. And then you put in place mechanisms, not for just Kantamanto market, but for all our markets, because this happens too often. And not just our markets, we hear petrol station here, because people have cut corners. So wherever the buck stops with in the management of our markets, we've got district assemblies, we've got the AMA. What are they doing? What have they done? Who is supervising to make sure, who is checking to make sure that the person who is in charge has done what they've got to do? And again, you know, we're a land without consequences. Somebody does something wrong, we hear the news, we don't hear what happens later on. Angela was talking about fire service, are told to do A, B, and C. We don't hear what happens. And that is the story with every catastrophe that happens, every hardship, every heartache. We hear the journal and the journalists, honestly, we don't do follow up with stories. We hear the story. We don't know what happens. So and so has been arrested. This person has gone to court. This person has been asked to do A, B, and C. Does it really happen? We don't know. And so it feeds into our cynicism that actually we're just being given these stories that Minister so-and-so and Director so-and-so is going to do this. This person has been arrested but doesn't follow through. We believe that it doesn't happen. So it's a hydra-headed monster that we are dealing with. But they say Rome was not built in a day. Ghana too cannot be built in a day. But if the people who are the office holders coming in now say that they want to reset, they have to ask themselves, reset to what? And they, you know, the jargons are many: accountability, integrity. We want to see it. We want to see what exactly is it you're going to do, and can we measure you against what it is that you have promised to do? And in this case,
Prof. And Joyce says that she's been speaking to the president, and he knows that the president-elect is ready to make this the first test of how he's going to do the resetting agenda. We will see how it goes. We'll be right back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And the leaders are listening and watching because they do watch this show. So your advice will not be in vain. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And forgive us, those of you who have not come to terms with the fact that we have been doing Newsfile from 8 a.m. That is what we have been doing. And so you've missed an hour of very deep thinking, analysis of the Kantamanto Fire disaster